In reflective meditation, I sometimes say that we are the describe your experience school of Buddhism. After you meditate, we invite you to describe your experience first to yourself, and then, if you choose, to others. And this simple act of recalling and articulating what happened is part of the practice and becomes part of a practice. It's how we learn from the body mind that we actually have, not the one we think we should have. In our descriptions, we may find ourselves using one-word labels. This is not uncommon. Labeling our experience is an ordinary habit, and many Buddhist traditions have long used it. Early instructions in the Satipatthana Sutta, the foundations of mindfulness, on knowing feeling states, mind states. They use one-word labels, and later insight practices gave instructions to meditators to lightly name or note whatever's happening right after it happens in the meditation. But we take this into a softer, more personal direction because we often see that labels hold deeper meaning for us. Tired, the label of tired, hopeful, scattered, curious, whatever we might say about ourselves or our experience, we really don't consider that they're just categories. We would consider them more small doors into a wider landscape. There's often much more in a label. So a few ways that labeling has worked, or I see it working within this daily online practice is one way is taking away a topic of a Dharma talk. After we listen to a Dharma talk, there may be a theme or a phrase that stays with us. Sometimes that helps us begin the meditation. It can be focusing or collecting to use that one word or phrase. And sometimes that concentration or focus stays through the whole meditation. And other times it drops away and you move on. You drift away, something else takes over. We don't have to stay with the topic ideal in the practice here daily. But often a word or an image will arise during a meditation or even a feeling, and it wakes us up a little. And we may feel curious about it. And sometimes these words, images, or feelings, sometimes they really do hold deeper meaning for us. And we can explore them, if not in the sitting, afterwards, in the reflection, in the journaling. But other times they are nonsensical or even mysterious. They don't really have much meaning. They're more pointing to being focused or concentrated in the meditation. But it's hard not to attribute something to an image or to one word that keeps repeating itself or to something that we're focused on. So we go more in the direction of being interested in what you do attribute to those experiences. Often they feel like gifts to me because they feel like something a little out of the ordinary. So I often feel like it's something given to me. Another way words or labels work is that they can carry dukkha with them, maybe even more than we can feel right at that time. So even that single word can hold sorrow or trauma or discomfort. And describing our experience around that word that practice can translate into our everyday life where we get a little bit better sense of timing when to go deeper with some of these images or words, when to stay put, when to stretch a little bit further. So this practice in meditation actually does help us to do that in our life because we're constantly labeling things. We're reading labels. Labels are a way we can communicate more quickly. They're often our shorthand to ourselves and to others. In fact, whole cultures can get built on certain labels. You know, my family has words that other families don't use. It's just something that's so common, we often don't look at it more deeply. But I want to return here to learning from the body mind that we actually have, not the one we think we should have. I've just always oriented to the body mind that I think I should have. Like, it's a real radical statement to actually learn from what I do have. And it's personally true, I think, for individuals and also for how we live with one another in the world. We keep meeting what is here, not what would be here if we were more disciplined, more spiritual, more healed, more anything. So recently I've been reading an article by Bhikkhu Analayo. He's a Theravada monk and scholar. And the title is Emptiness Requires Contextualization. And even the title was like, oh, should I read this or not? I'm not sure. I don't know if I can. And it's a response to a school of thought reemerging in Buddhism that emphasizes a context-free attainment of emptiness. And I used to be able to read these kinds of articles and formulate my response, and maybe even have a little bit of a debate. But from where I stand today, not only in my years and my body complaints, but also in the strain of caring for injured family members and compounded by larger physical stress, I could only take a few words away from the article. And it was interesting to me this morning to notice which one stuck. The phrase that stuck is, "Thus I have heard." Just the very beginning, before a teaching even happens. That's all I could take away. But Analayo pointed out that before any teachings were given, there was almost always this kind of introduction, a way of noting where he stood that day, literally naming a place, but also using words to orient his listeners to the context from where these teachings arose. He often would say something like, just after so-and-so's awakening, or after my awakening, soon after a monk whose name I can't pronounce left the order, or soon after a schism that happened from another monk. And even important deaths marked as functions. They often made it into the preamble before a Dharma talk. So they weren't just formalities. They reminded listeners that teachings arise from somewhere, from a moment, from a condition, a pressure, a relationship, a change. There's a lot going on. The teachings came from somewhere. And it brings me back to our practice. When we describe our meditation experience, we're also saying our own quiet version of "Thus I have heard." We're situating ourselves, the Dharma, in our experience, in the conditions of our actual lives, in these aging bodies and stressful world that we live in. And our words, as simple as they are, is kind of, normal as they are, non-scholarly, so to speak, if they are, become a way of acknowledging where we're standing today. And they give us context, and they reveal more conditions, and they help us meet our body-mind, the body-mind that we have today, with a little more honesty and a little more humility and some kindness. Okay, I'm going to end here.